remember whenever I first started playing Breath of Fire 3. It was a few years ago on TikTok. That was the last game, the last RPG that I actually streamed on the platform before I actually moved over completely to Twitch to stream. The only reason I stopped is because I was playing another RPG at the time. I want to say it was Legend of Dragoon again on Twitch. I think I've streamed that game at least 3 times in my streaming career whenever it comes to RPGs. And I don't plan on streaming it anymore in the near future because there's way too many RPGs in my backlog that I need to get to. But getting back to Breath of Fire 3. Now, whenever I played this, I enjoyed it, I liked it, but trying to take on 2 RPGs at once and being on 2 different platforms was just a lot for me to handle, so I decided to initially cut it, and then I'm going to shelve it and then get back to it later. Well, it took me a few years to get back to it, but I decided, I'm like, you know what? I left it unfinished. I'm going to finish it this time, and I'm so glad I did. And now, I just wanted to give you a little bit of history about my playthrough as far as my beginnings with Breath of Fire 3, so let's get on to the review. I think this would have an impact on me like it did. And it sure as hell made a definite lasting impression on me. Whenever I think of Breath of Fire 3, it reminded me a lot of Chrono Trigger. And I don't know if it's just like some of the music. Yes, some of the music, especially whenever you're in the forest area, literally feels like the forest area from Chrono Trigger. And the characters, everything about that game just literally gives me Chrono Trigger vibes. And you all know that that's my favorite game of all time. So I literally felt really drawn to this one like I was Chrono Trigger. And I don't think that's ever happened, not even with the Lunar games. So this was a pretty definite impact on me whenever it comes to an RPG because nothing else has even come close to doing that as far as that spectrum of Chrono Trigger. So that definitely means that this game really overall impressed me. Now, whenever it comes to the game, there's a lot of stuff that I missed out on. I know it is my first playthrough, so I didn't go like all in like 100%. I did the best I could with this playthrough. There's a lot of this game that is very missable, like the masters in this, because there's several of them that are really hard to get because you have to make certain requirements in order to get them. I think there's one that you have to actually have a certain ranking with the fishing in order to be able to get under that master, which I will admit, whenever I was playing this game, I am not the best at fishing with this. I literally did it only a couple times, and there's one time I had to do it because it was mandatory for the story, especially because you have to make something called shishu, which is for a person that doesn't like fish, but he's going to eat fish. That was just hilarious. It's one of the things about this game that I want to say that I love too is the hilarious dialogue with it. No, there's no voice acting, but I made it my own because of the fact that I supplied the voice acting. I did a snippet for y'all like maybe a video or 2 ago about the voice acting that I did with Momo, Ryu, Nina, the whole gang. Everyone had their own unique voice and everything shifted whenever some of them got older like Nina and then Ryu because they do age. You start off when they're young, and then 10 years later, whenever Ryu's grown up, and Nina as well, their voices did shift because I looked at their characters. I'm like, okay, I'm going to acclimate this voice to this, and it worked because I typically, whenever I do voice acting, I look at the character as a whole. I'm like, what voice would fit this character that I can do? And that's what I did. I implemented what I thought worked best, and it did. Now, getting back to the characters themselves, let's start off with that. Now, the characters, there is one that I didn't really care for, in all honesty. I'm not really the biggest fan of Pico. Pico is adorable. Pico's a little onion that you find in the plant, but he is OP. He really is if you really work on his character. But he's not my favorite. He's cute, but he's not going to be, like, on the top of the list for me. Now, whenever he does transform and actually does fight, he literally looks like Majin Buu. I don't know why they did that, but it's fucking hilarious. He doesn't sound like Majin Buu, but he looks like Majin Buu whenever he does that. Now, my favorite characters, I think Momo would probably be my favorite character, even though her hit count is fucking ridiculous. It's like a 50-50 shot. She's got a big-ass cannon, and she can't fucking hit where bricks on her shit. Literally, she can't. But it's still funny to actually, see her attempt to do that. Now, she is pretty, kooky, wacky. She's definitely out there whenever, as far as her personality goes. She's very intelligent, but also, like I said, out there. But that's what I love about Momo. She's just got that vibe that I like. Now, of course, I like Ryu. Ryu is a silent protagonist, but I gave him the little Link treatment, like, yeah, like that. You know how Link doesn't talk? Well, that's what I did for Ryu because he doesn't talk either. Pico doesn't talk either until the very... Yes, there's a spoiler alert! He doesn't actually talk until later on in the game because he actually is Yggdrasil, which, again, spoiler heavy. If you don't want to hear any of this, fast forward it. Now, moving on to Ryu. Ryu is really a cool character, even though he's a silent protagonist. You know, for fuck's sake, he's part of the Brood. He's a dragon. You know, he transforms. He literally has a move called the Kaiser move that you have to actually do specific genes in order to get and to actually control. Because if you do it wrong, he'll actually be unable to control even if he's in the Kaiser form. Yes, you can screw that up, and he's pretty much, you know, in a trance, and you can't do anything with him until he actually gets out of, you know, Super Saiyan mode. He literally looks like a Super Saiyan whenever he's actually powering up, whenever he does that. And another thing I want to mention too, whenever you do have control over the Kaiser move, he literally looks like he's doing the Kamehameha wave. He's got like this back there, and he has the ball. He goes, ha! Like that. It is just so funny to see that. I'm like, were they inspired by Dragon Ball Z? I literally love the nods to that. I don't know if it was or not. I don't think so. But hell, Capcom did a great job with this. Now, the Dragon Genes, there are 18 of them. I got all 18. I almost missed one of them, but luckily I was able to go back and get it because it was literally just sitting right in front of me. I'm like, how the fuck do I get that? I had to literally push a box or break a box with Gar in order to get the damn thing. I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, that's how I get it. Okay. So I got all of them. I didn't really look for them actively either. I'm like, oh, okay, I stumbled upon them. I know that some people do miss them, but I was able to get all 18. And that comes into the thing whenever it comes to the Masters. Whenever it came to Ryu, I basically focused on Bunyan, and then I moved up to, that's the one that you initially can start with. You can form your character however you want. You can focus on magic. You can focus on strength. I'm more so focused on strength with him, so I went through Bunyan. And then I finally landed on Ladin, which is basically the one that is the dragon. You know, like, I think he's from, like, Breath of Fire 1 or 2. I don't know. I've not played that one, but that's what I've been told. So, y'all tell me, I don't know. But he's basically in the form of a portrait whenever you go to Dragnar. And he's, like, right there. I would have missed him had it not been for somebody telling me he was right there. So, I did have a little bit of help actually finding out his location because I didn't know where he was. Because I thought he was a statue. There was a little tent with a statue of him, and I kept trying to actually talk to the statue, but I'm like, why are you just making me just save? What is this shit? And literally, I'm like, oh, he's on the wall. I literally had an oh my god moment. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? He's on the wall! Wow, magical mirror on the wall. How the fuck do I fall for this bullshit? Literally, that's how I felt. But he's actually the ultimate master that you can get for Ryu, and he's the only one that I use with Ryu, but I got him in late game, so I wasn't able to get like the full actual experience with the masters. That's another thing too that I'm going to touch on a little bit right now since I'm thinking about it. I did not really do a lot with the masters. I kind of was lackluster with those because they are not really too pivotal with your first playthrough. I mainly focused on the story and then getting through the game, so I was still pretty good. I did grind the hell out of my characters. I think I was like 48 with Ryu whenever I ended the game, and everybody else was in like the high 30s or low 40s for all my party, which I will tell you that if you don't focus on the masters, I would suggest that you do that because some of these enemies, especially near in-game, can be hard as balls. I literally thought I was going to die at some points, but I actually did a no-death run. So, no, I did not die at all. No game overs, nothing. Throughout this entire thing, I was so excited to actually do a no-death run. I wasn't even trying to really, but as I got closer in-game, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make sure I don't die because I'm not died yet. So, knock on wood, hopefully I don't this time, and I didn't, even though I did get hard at some points. But I managed to grind the fuck out of my character, so that way I was able to skim by with that because, like I said, I did not focus on the masters because there's so many missable ones. There's so many little things you got to do to get certain ones unlocked, like I mentioned before with the fishing guy. But I'll let you all, go through the masters or whatever, and find out on your own because sometimes it's better to find out on your own than through me with everything. Give a little bit of, detail, but leave the rest for you to find out. What are you doing? That's literally the voice that I gave Gar. His guttural voice is like deep because he's a god. He's one of the ones that destroyed the Brood because he's the guardian and he's trying to protect the earth. So that was his job, but he's questioning everything about what he did, hundreds of years ago. But little did he know that the Dragon Clan, a lot of them actually escaped, but gave their powers up so that way they can hide themselves because they were waiting on Ryu. Again, another spoiler-heavy thing, but it is what it is. I mean, this game has been out for 30 years! Almost! Holy shit! Yeah, almost 30 years, 1997. That's so crazy that this game is literally almost 30 years old, but is still as beautiful as ever. The graphics are definitely something that I will point out briefly before we go back to Gar, that literally are still beautiful to this day. They still hold up. I mean, I like Breath of Fire 4. I've played it, but it feels, from what I remember now, this is just with a grain of salt, because it's been many, many years since I played Breath of Fire 4. I thought about replaying it again to see if my mind has changed on it, because I liked it when I played it initially a long time ago, but hell, I might change my mind now. But Breath of Fire 3 is above 4 in all aspects, because the art style is different between the two. 4 is more flowy, kind of like, translucent, versus like the boldness and bright colors of 3, which kind of, again, reminds me of Chrono Trigger. There's just so many subtleties to it that's just ridiculous with that. So definitely, if not all games on PS1 have aged horribly, this one is one of those testaments to that. So getting back to Gar. Gar is another favorite character of mine, because he pretty much is just like in his own little world. He's kind of like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. But he eventually warms up to Ryu, because initially he actually had planned on, getting rid of Ryu, if you catch my drift, because he wanted to eliminate the last part of the brood, the link to it. But like I said, there are more of the brood whenever they go to Dragnir, and he's like, holy shit, I missed that. How did I miss all these? But then they become friends, and then they fight together to save the world, at least from Mira, which I'll get back into that in just a minute. So they're looking for the goddess. They find Dias. Dias apparently is Mira's sister. Apparently, there's more connection with Dias and Mira from what I've been told. This is the first time that they are actually claimed that they're sisters. That's in-game stuff from the choice that I made. I think there are multiple endings to this. I don't know, because of the fact that it gives you a choice about what you want to do. And then it also says at the end of the game that you can actually fight the actual goddess again. So I'm like, so I'll be doing that on my own to see if I make the other choice, what happens and what ending I'll get with that. So I guess there's 2. I don't know. I'll find out later. But anyway, getting back to Gar. Gar is just pretty much this tough big dude. He literally looks like fucking Bowser. I'm not kidding. Like a buff 3.0.57 holy million shit Bowser. But he's just got that gruffness, that brutal honesty. He's just basically, he has one goal, one initiative, and then it shifts whenever the years roll by, and then, he has more respect for Ryu. Now, his moveset, he has a lot of fire moves and stuff. I didn't really use those, to be honest, whenever it came to Gar. I mainly just used his brute strength, and that's what I focused on. And then as far as his master goes, I did have Bunyan on him, I believe, at one point, and then I went to Flail for him, and I think that's where I stopped, because Flail is the guy, he's pretty much a little horse dude that you can meet at, like, the little arena place, the tournament area that you actually encounter early on in the game whenever you meet Balo and Sunder. Speaking of those two really quick, like I said, whenever I talk about stuff, sometimes I will go off on a different tangent, but I'll focus on the main topic, because if I don't do it now, I will forget to do it later. So bear with me during this whole process. Balo and Sunder are 2 of my favorite non-playable characters in PCs. Those fuckers are hilarious as hell. They are literally 2 unicorn dudes that are buff as fuck, and they are in this tournament, and they capture Ryu and Nina whenever they're younger. Nina's the princess of Windia, so they're gonna capture her, and he's a dragon, so holy shit, yes, they're gonna capture him too. That's a whole different thing. I just like their characters because they're comical as shit. They're back and forth between each other. Whenever I did yes, I did do their voices as well. Whenever I did theirs, I kind of gave them like the dude aspect, which is funny, but we eventually, get rid of them, if you catch my drift with that, so they're no longer in the story. But later on, whenever you go to the final area, there's these little robots that kind of resemble them, but the dude aspect that I gave them, like, and then I also did like the little horse Winnie too, and like, they're like, princess dude, money, something like that, along the lines of Balo and Sunder. But as far as Gar, there's not really too much to point out on him. He's a god. I use his brute strength, but he's still a great character because I love the fact that he's buff as hell and can get shit done. Hooray. Well, doesn't that beat it all? That's literally his catchphrase. I love doing Ray's voice. Ray's was one of the funnest ones that I did in the entirety of the game. It literally made me laugh so hard because he's basically he's a cat or some kind of werecat or something like that. Whenever you first meet him and Tipo are like little bandits or, trying to make their way through whenever Ryu meets him for the first time when he's younger. And then years later, you find him again, but he's not the same until you fight him and it's like, oh, hey, it's Ryu. We're going to go on a quest together. We're friends again. So it's just his nonchalantness, his pretty much, I don't give a fuck attitude. He's like, I'm going to beat this shit up and go with the flow kind of vibe. I loved him to death. Now, I will say that I never used his were-tiger thing. I know that that's one of his biggest moves, but I never did. I kind of should have because his weapons and everything, whenever he just does general attacks, does not really do much unless he does a critical hit. Then he will do some massive damage. I kind of fell short whenever it came to trying to do his masters too. I got Delonzo for him at one point, and then I shifted over to, I think it's Marileap. I believe it's a little fairy that you have to actually literally use Pico to kick a rock into the pond. This is how you actually access this master, okay? Every single time you want to talk to this master, you have to do this. At least I did. I don't know if you did, but I did. So the fairy's in the forest. You go in the forest and there's this little pond. There's rocks that you actually have to kick into the water. And the only one that can do that is Pico. Pico trying to hit those fucking rocks is a pain in the ass. There's even a part in the game whenever I think it's the plant, whenever everything's going shitty and crazy, you have to use Pico to hit the rocks on the top of the fucking greenhouses to actually literally get the stuff to come out. I don't know why I couldn't just use the sword that Ryu had to fucking knock that shit off, but no, we had to kick a fucking rock in a damn greenhouse top. Anyway, you gotta kick the rock in the fucking pond in order to get her to come up, be like, ooh, hello, we have our secrets. What do you want to learn now? Ooh. Like that. Yes, that is my fairy voice. The fairies were another thing I liked about the game too. Doing their voices mainly, not anything else but that really, because they're a pain in the ass to deal with. I'll touch base on them in just a second. But anyway, that's actually how you access them as far as like her for the fairies. Now, whenever it comes to Ray, I didn't really like focus too much on trying to build up his master form and stuff like that. I got, Marileap or Marileap, I don't know how to say the fairy's name at the end of the game, close to it. So Delonzo was the one that I focused more on whenever it came to getting his actual stats. So that was the main one I used pretty much throughout the entire game until the very last half. But still tried to make it in there a little bit. I pretty much used Ray as my main party. He honestly did some hits here or there, but he was mainly there for healing. And I mainly used items to heal because there's several items that you can use. There's vitamins, which is like the 100 HP. Now, the one thing I will say, since we're talking about items for a second, the thing about this, and this is going to go into the fairies too as well, AP is how you use your magic. And AP is very critical, especially if you're doing your transformations with your dragon form. Your ascension is what it's called. And you cannot buy those items in game. Not that I'm aware of, and they're pretty seldom to find whenever you're looking. You can get them randomly in battles. And there's a thing called Wisdom Fruit. I had like 8 during in-game. I don't know where I got them. They were very random. I think I got them fighting in the desert, I believe, or somewhere. But like I said, they're not very common to find. You can get like AP with fish. But again, I told you earlier, the fishing was something I fucking sucked at. And I still suck at it, and I don't like it. I don't like fishing in all kinds of RPGs. There's some I do, but most of them, I fucking hate the fishing. But anyway, the fairies coming into this regard. So apparently there's a way to actually duplicate stuff with the fairies, because I'm like, what the fuck are they here for? Because you meet the fairies initially. Okay, this goes into another favorite part of mine. Oh man, it was one of the most epic things ever in this game. You meet a dolphin. He's actually terrorizing these fairies, and he has an Australian accent. I'm not kidding. I'm like, what the fuck? Because he's literally talking, like he would be from Australia. And then at a certain point, the game asks you this. It asks, do you want to do the English translation instead? I'm like, what the fuck, Capcom? I'm not fucking kidding. I was rolling. I'm like, what the fuck? It was just so weird. I never have seen anything like that in a game. I've seen some weird ass RPGs, but that one was fucking epic with that part. But anyway, you meet them, and then basically you take on the dolphin. That was one of my favorite parts because I was doing the voice acting with the dolphin and the fairies, and then he scared the shit out of me. It was just so hilarious with that part whenever it came to that fight. Anyway, after taking on the dolphin, you free the fairies, and they're able to actually build their village. Well, the thing is, I did that, and the fairies will actually, basically respawn and do their thing. Multiple fairies keep coming in, and you have different jobs to assign to them. You can do a scholar, you can do a builder, you can do clearing, for crops, and then you could do hunting, so for food. So basically you have 4 things that you could do with the fairies. Well, I did everything. Well, first off, whenever I first started doing this, all my fairies died but 1. So I'm like, oh shit. So then I moved on to, like, okay, I'm going to focus on this, and I did better. So I got more food, and then more fairies started to populate, and they started building stuff, and I'm like, why am I doing this for? I feel like I'm doing this damn Tamagotchi shit for nothing. Why the fuck am I doing this? Anyway, getting back to that. So basically someone actually mentioned, they looked it up and mentioned this to me, like, you do know that you could duplicate stuff with them. I'm like, how the fuck do I do that? Because I didn't know how to do it. I still don't know. Because that's one thing that you could do, I guess, and that's how you can actually maximize your AP. I'm assuming you could do it with AP, like the items that you get and duplicate items. I don't know. There's also something that they can actually sell items to, so that might go into that role as well. I don't know. I don't really know much about the fairy things. The way to access the fairies too, you have to have this little fairy tiara, and you can actually go to the fairy rings that are listed across the land and actually just warp there, and that's how you get there. I pretty much just kept them up, but that's all I did. I didn't really do anything else with the fairies, but just, try to help them build their village, and then that would be it. Speaking on the actual layout of the map, the map is pretty straightforward. There is no fast travel. That is one thing about Breath of Fire 3 that you'll come to find out. However, it's pretty easy to maneuver the map except for one area, which I'll get into a little bit later, which I fucking could not stand. So you can basically just walk anywhere you want to go. And later on, you'll get like a really access point that'll take you to only like maybe 5 or 6 areas like Dragnar, Relay Point B, and then the colony. Those are just examples of that. So whenever you do that, it might be a little bit easier, but I just preferred walking back and forth to places unless it was like Dragnar. Then I would have to teleport there, but everywhere else I would just walk to because it was just easier. Because once you learn the layout of the map, it is very easy to get to where you need to go because it's not vast. It's not like Breath of the Wild or anything like that. It's a very small map, and it's really easy to maneuver and get through things. And that's one thing I appreciate about it. Now, one other thing that I want to mention, a lot of people don't like the fact that RPGs are, battle after that. Well, one thing about the map, the overworld map that you can actually avoid is battles because it does not make you actually enter them when you're on the overfilled map. The only time that you actually have to do battles is whenever you're in a dungeon, and they do come back to back like that. It is a little bit heavy on that. It felt like every 2 steps I would take, but that's an RPG for you. I mean, you're not going to get experience unless you do battles. You can run too if you're lucky. I did not know how to fucking run until later on in the game. I'm like, how the fuck do I escape this shit? I'm like, oh, R1? Oh, wow, I didn't fucking know that. That's what I get for not reading the damn manual. Read the manual, man. Because I had no clue until someone told me. I'm like, oh, because there was a battle with the vampire. That thing is so annoying. You meet him later on in the game. He literally will regenerate 500 HP. And my hits were like doing 200. And he would regenerate. I'm like, you motherfucker. I was actually able to get one, take one out, luckily, but I think just one, and the rest of them I would run from because they're just a pain in the ass to deal with. They're worth it for the experience, but they're not worth the hassle of trying to sit there for like 30 minutes to try to fight a goddamn vampire. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying about the map. The map's great. The overworld's beautiful. It's really easy to maneuver. You can camp. Whenever it says camp, it'll actually let you see a section. But if you want to fight on the map, you can. You'll have an exclamation point above Ryu. It'll say, hey, you can enter here. And it'll have little items that you can get in little bags. They're very random. It can be anything from like a fishing lure to like an item like a healing herb, whatever the case. I don't ever know what it's going to be. I think it is random. I'm pretty sure. But you can stay within that vicinity as long as you want to and keep fighting enemies if you want, unless you just want to exit, then you can go. So that's pretty much the thing that I like about the overworld map, is that you actually have that capability to do that, because not a lot of RPGs do offer that. Before we talk about the one fucking place I could not stand, and a lot of y'all that have played this game know what the hell I'm talking about, I want to touch briefly on the OST for the game, the soundtrack. It is beautiful. Especially, like I said, there's moments to where I feel like I'm listening to something from Chrono Trigger. Whenever you're in the forest area, it literally sounds like it. I'm not kidding. And then whenever you're in Junktown and you go to like the beach area, and then you're in this like mechanical area down below, Steel Beach is what I'm referring to. It literally feels like, you know, you're in the future world with Chrono Trigger. It's just wild how that is. And whenever you get to Zarzan, the other part where all the, you know, beep beep boop beeps, the robots, beep beep boop beep Zarzan, you actually feel like you're literally in the future world. It's just so uncanny how much it reminds me of Chrono Trigger. But the light jazz is the one thing, that's the overall music that I mentioned, is the one thing you could just listen to. Dun, 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 dun. It's just great. It's just such a smooth vibe, but it fits the game itself. Now, let's get into the area that I hated the most. Most people quit at this area and they don't finish the game because it is so fucking difficult, and that is the Desert of Death. Oh my god. Okay, I was dreading this the entire way through the game. I knew it was coming, and it was close to end game. I'm like, oh my god, it's here. When it finally got here, yes, that's what I said. Oh my god, it's finally here. Oh no. I got to it. I'm like, how the fuck do I do this? So I was walking the desert. I was, okay, there's a North Star, there's a fake star, there's the other star over there. So there's 3 stars that you have to follow, that you can follow. So I was going straight, you know, walking my way. And the first time I went through it, I'm like, how the fuck do I drink anything? I don't have no damn water jug. I didn't. I'm like, where the hell's my water jug? Well, little did I know. I had to check. There's a guy that you talk to whenever you first start the desert that actually leads you to it. And to the right of him, there is a little water jug and you can refill your water. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So I managed to get that. I missed out on that first. So I'm walking forward. You know, I do a few days, you know, have my water jug. I'm not getting nowhere. I'm like, okay, we're not getting nowhere, so I'm going to turn back around. So I turn back around. Luckily, whenever you're, I think it's called Eradicate, is what you actually have to go back to the starting point, so that way you don't have to literally trek through the desert to find your way out. So had that, went back. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to go between the North Star and the fake star. So we're going to try that. So I'm doing it. I'm walking along, do it for a few days and nothing. I'm like, okay, what the fuck? It's not doing anything. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to fucking look up a guide to see what the hell to do. Well, I'm literally doing what the guy says, and we're still not getting no fucking where. And someone is like, hey, listen, there's a shortcut to this. Let me tell you what to do. I'm like, okay, what is it? They're like, go between the North Star and the fake North Star. I'm like, that's what I was doing. I didn't get nowhere. But I'm like, you know what? We'll do it again. So I fill up my water jug and we're trekking along. It's days. We're fighting through the desert. I'm like, dude, we're not getting nowhere. What the fuck's happening? They said it would take 3 days. It was more than 3 days. I'm still trekking, and we finally see on the horizon the fucking oasis. That's what we were looking for. It literally took almost, I want to say, about, I don't know, over almost 2 hours just to fucking go through the desert, but I finally managed to get it. Yes, there is a shortcut. If you go between the North Star and the fake North Star, you have to make sure you turn correctly. If not, you could screw that up and then lose track. That's how you can get through the Desert of Death a lot easier. I'm like, oh my fucking god, it was just ridiculous. But luckily, whenever you do it, you don't have to do it again, because there's a portal there that you can actually transfer out, so that way you don't have to trek back, because there is a thing that you can do to actually make your way back out of the desert, but it's better just to use the portal that you have. Even though my adventure with Breath of Fire 3 has ended, it will never leave my heart, because that's how much of an impact the game had on me, and it will make my top 30 games of all time. No, I don't know where it's going to sit at. I still have to do some rearranging whenever it comes to that, because I played so many RPGs over the course of the last few years. I don't know where anything stands at this point. Mine is Chrono Trigger and then Legend Dragoon. So this one will definitely be placed very high, because it literally has had so much of an impact on me. I can't tell you the last time one of these games has done this, and Chrono Trigger was one of those games. So it's on that same level as that because of the laughter it gave me, the fun moments, the frustration, everything that encompassed this game made me love it more. And my rating for this is going to be a 10 out of 10. Yes, the Desert of Death was fucking hell. Yes, the step 2-on-2, 4-1-4 fucking grindiness whenever it comes to a actual dungeon was a pain in the ass, but I can overlook those points because this game literally is unequivocally a masterpiece. In my mind, at least it is. And Capcom, bring back the Breath of Fire series! We need more! Now, I will be playing more in the Breath of Fire series. I've mentioned before I've only played 4 and now 3, so now there's 2 done. I want to replay 4 again at some point. I don't know when. It'll be in the near future, but I do plan on taking on Dragon Quarter, the one that's very infamous in the series for being the shittiest. So that one, and plus that one is more affordable than the other 2. I know that Breath of Fire 2 is the more expensive. It goes for like 85 loose, and I think the first one is like 50, but y'all know me. If it's an RPG, if I can get a complete in box, I'm going to do that. I do want to play those at some point, but those will be a little bit longer down the line. So Dragon Quarter will be the next entry that I'll probably play in the Breath of Fire series. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the review about my touches and my points on the actual game itself. It definitely was a fun time. I will miss Breath of Fire 3, but there's more RPGs to come. Shadow Madness is next, and literally it is a fucking madhouse with that. But until next time, this is the PlayStation Girl signing out. Game on!